Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Karen Hording, Executive Director and CEO for the Society, based at our headquarters in Chicago in the U.S. I think we had a great start to the morning with our keynote speaker, and I'm super excited now to welcome you to our Men as Diversity Partners Plenary panel. I'm not going to introduce our speakers, but I am going to introduce our moderator, who is somebody that I consider a role model and a friend. Jennifer Howland is executive of the Pathways Program for Experienced Diverse Technical Talent at IBM at their corporate headquarters. With almost 32 years of experience at IBM, Jennifer runs a worldwide program to develop and implement bold actions to increase the representation of diverse talent in IBM's technical executive positions by attracting, recruiting, developing, and retaining experienced mid-career technical talent into these leadership roles. Through her numerous management and executive leadership roles in male-dominated environments, she has always been passionate about helping women achieve their career goals. Jennifer is very active in SWE's Corporate Partnership Council, and most recently has been instrumental in helping us launch our STEM reentry program. This is a program that helps women who've taken a career break, some for just a couple of years, some for as many as 20 years, return to the technical workforce. So I think tomorrow, Jennifer and Jen Scott from the SWE headquarters team are going to be doing a session around building a STEM reentry program. So I encourage anybody who's interested in launching a program or knows women who are looking to return to the workforce to attend that session. So with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer and the great panel that we've assembled.
Thank you so much, Karen. Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Marcin Klimaszewski first to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Marcin Klimaszewski. I lost voice. Probably better. Oh, now it's better. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. So Marcin Klimaszewski, I work for Intel Technology. I'm based in Poland, north of Poland, Gdańsk, over the seaside, so feel warmly welcome if you've never been there. Jennifer, you too. Just to maybe briefly introduce myself, why I'm here. So I'm in a business like maybe a little bit more than 20 years. I started in Lucent Technologies. I worked there for 6 years now, 14 years at Intel. I lead cloud engineering division right now with several number of people. But from the very beginning, I've been surrounded with technical females, which is actually kind of sign like a North Star for me. Starting in Lucent, I worked with several great technical female, and I learned a lot from them. When I joined Intel, things changed a little bit. However, not from the very beginning. In the beginning, I've been assigned to projects because I've been an engineer, I've been programmer, to the project when the technical lead actually of this project was so busy, really didn't find time for me. And I remember two great engineers, females, and they helped me survive. I was thinking in the beginning to leave Intel after a quarter, guys, really, trust me. Very difficult experience, but thanks to them, I really survived. Now I'm 14 years, veteran of Intel, and I think it's kind of my destiny to really work with great talents. A lot of them are females, and I'll talk. I hope I'll have more time to share my stories later on about this. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Fernando Ceccarelli from Eaton.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and an honor, and to feel what it is to be in a minority, male, white male, for once. I've been working for Eaton for the last 21 years. I'm Brazilian. I started with the company there, and I have moved for several positions in the company. I worked in Brazil, and in the US, in Poland, in Germany, and now in Austria. Has been a very interesting, very fortunate to be able to do this and to meet so many different type of people. Eaton, for those that don't know, Eaton is a power management company. So we are a manufacturing company. We produce solutions, we design, we launch them, and we serve our customers with ways to manage their power in the most efficient and safe way. Power means electrical power, mechanical power, fluid power. I'm today responsible for the power distribution division, which means electrical products for homes, industries, based in Vienna, Austria. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Great, thank you. Thomas. Thank you. Thomas Peuntner from John Deere.
Good morning to everybody. My name is Thomas Peuntner. I'm the HR director for John Deere, located in Mannheim, Germany, responsible for Europe, the CIS, Near Middle East, and Northern Africa. I'm German, in Germany. So the question is, what is the diversity I can bring in? I'm also married to a German, and I have 3 German kids. But during my career, I had some experiences, so I just returned, and just means about 1 year ago, from Brazil. Actually, interesting enough, the same area where Fernando is coming from, where we lived for 3 years, and where I was responsible for HR in Latin America. I also had one experience for about 2 years in Switzerland. That sounds like not a diversity experience for a German, but it is. It is. So it's not as Brazil, but there is something in there. So the 13 years in John Deere, I spent mainly in human resources areas. Also worked there with India and China and Russia. So I have the brick somehow. I also worked for a chemical company before I joined John Deere, a company called BASF, or some say BASF. In HR as well. I did a PhD in human resources and economics, whatever you call that, at Mannheim University. And before I even studied, I had an apprenticeship in a bank. So I also have a little banking background that I also studied as a combination of banking and human resources. So that's me.
Good, thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
And next we have Jonathan Wood from Cummins.
Good morning. So don't worry, Thomas, I'm British and I live in Britain and I have British kids too. So we've got diversity. Hey, good morning. So I'm Jonathan Wood. So I lead research and engineering for Cummins Emissions Solutions. So that's our after-treatment business. That's actually, I've been in that job for 1 month now. Previous to that, I led our turbocharger division out of the UK. I've been with Cummins 23 years now. I started as a college hire, so I came straight out of doing my master's in the UK, joined Cummins, and have been in many product development roles, mainly engineering, program management, advanced engineering, varied career. I've lived in both the UK and in China. I've had an opportunity to live in China with my family for a little while. So I'm here so I lead the European Area Business Organization Technical Women's Leadership Initiative on behalf of the Global Cummins Initiative. So partly why I'm here is to drive that work. But also the other reason why I see this important is it's all about talent. It's about access to talent, it's about seeing talent, and it's about how do we get the best talent within Cummins, and that's kind of why I'm here.
Good, thank you. So I've got some prepared questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience questions. So be thinking now of some questions you might want to ask this panel. The first question is, in changing the culture of your organization to being more inclusive and diverse, what were the biggest challenges? And I think I will start with Jonathan.
So I get to go again, great. Okay, biggest challenges, there are many. And I think if I was to summarize, I think I'd start out with, I think when you're trying to drive inclusion and you're trying to drive diversity, I think you have to get the men engaged in that. Because it's really difficult, I think, for the minority, which in this case is the women, to change the majority. And that is really important, and really setting out with that approach and leading from the very top in engaging men at all levels, I think is really important. And it's not easy to do. I think at a senior level, people can see the business case for diversity, they understand it, but as you go down through the organization, it becomes less visible and becomes less understood. And that brings me on, I think, to my second point, which is you have to focus a lot on communication. Why are you doing it? What are the reasons for doing it? How are you doing it? And talking about what it is and what it is not. What is inclusion and what it is not. Because going through the organization, and when you start out on some of these, people feel like you're playing the numbers game, you're just going to recruit 50-50 men, women, irrespective of capability. And getting that message over that it's not about that, it's about getting to the best talent for the company to provide diversity, and the business case for diversity is a really important message to get to all levels of the organization. And it actually takes a long time to do that. And particularly when you're a global organization, you're spread across the world, you don't necessarily have face-to-face contact with everybody that's on your team and all the people in your organization. Making time to get that communication message out is really important. So I guess in terms of challenges, those would be the two. There are many others, but those would be the two that stand out for me as the ones.
Okay, great. Martin.
Yeah, if I can add on the top, which I share exactly what you, Jonathan, mentioned about. So basing on my experience in Poland, we have a R&D site of like up to 2,000 people size right now, which is kind of, big sample of engineers, managers, mostly engineers and managers, but also some sales. Like you, Jonathan, said, there is many, and I think we could classify at least in two categories. This is what we've done when we researched, a couple years ago with the group of people in Poland. How does it look like, and how to maybe cure it, how to fix it? So external challenges and our own internal. So in Poland, in terms of diversity, the men, female, so gender diversity, the external challenges, I don't know, guys, if you agree, but are going much farther out of the company. So society and how we grow kids, how the women, the girls are grown, and I've listened a little bit to the opening presentation, and it was also touched briefly. I personally have a daughter which is 19 years old and passing final exams from the high school now. She is gonna study in technical university, which is great, but for me it was impossible for some reason. I tried hard to convince her to choose IT. I don't know if this is my fault, partially, probably yes, but in general the society, at least in Poland, but I also talked yesterday with some French friends and they shared the same opinion, is difficult to fight with. So people grow up from families, the parents tell ladies, the small ladies, that you shouldn't take care, you shouldn't do this, it's not for you. I even heard a week ago the advice from my mother, guys, which is actually interesting. Why my daughter is going to technical study and want to become a, engineer, whatever type. There are only men there. This is what's happening. So external is one. Internal is something which is probably more we as managers and leaders and the company from top to bottom has influence. And I would add to this internal couple more. For instance, when you have a big sample of men, 90, 80%, whatever, more than 50, you meet a lot of different kind of behaviors. So there are a lot of biases, unconscious biases, which simply that, the lady, the women are not good engineers or are worse than men, which of course I disagree, and many similar to me disagree in our company, but many, cultivate this. So fighting with this is something. The challenge which we need to fight. The other is how to find good examples, role models for women. This is very interesting that for men it's easy. I see the leaders of mine. Actually, my manager now is a woman. She is vice president of Intel, so this is different. But for years, my manager was man and several men. So this is easy for women. Finding the role model because they are in minority is a challenge. So promoting, female to high positions and preparing them for being role model is also a big challenge. Maybe the last one, not to take too much time, understanding how we work. We work differently in many cases. This is what I notice, and still my examples. So when I work with women, we do a lot of good communication, cultivate teamwork. This is what I experienced for years. Team always can deliver better results than individuals. This is not only a value of individual people in a team, but also synergistic energy of the team. Men, the stereotype is they are fighters, they are challengers, etc. They communicate different. And I see it again. I have a son, 15 years old. In his team, he's really aggressive. And I have troubles when he comes home to really make him cool down a little bit and talk to me in a different way, and talk to his sister in a different way. Yeah? So understanding how people communicate, different people, not only gender, but also age, experience, race, etc., is also a big challenge. I hope we'll talk about more how to fix it later.
Thank you, Marcin. I have so many follow-up questions I could ask, but I would like to move on to the next question, and maybe we'll get to that after. The next question has to do with something you mentioned. I think you all understand the implications, the negative implications that unconscious bias can have on your business decisions. And what can be done within industry and academia to ensure that decisions are made only on the basis of talent and qualifications and not unduly influenced by typical unconscious biases like race, gender, age, etc.? I don't know who would like to start with that question.
So I can.
Thank you, Thomas.
Does it work? No. It's working? You can hear me? Okay, very good. So maybe from an HR perspective, as I'm working in HR, there is one tricky piece of that. You said only select based on talent, right? Qualification. That's what you said, right? There is always something that I was asked many times, is somebody a good fit to the team? And that's exactly the tricky part, because there comes the conscious or unconscious bias. Because you want somebody that somehow works well with the team. And somebody you might want somebody that does not cause any, let's call it, trouble. Sometimes you may want somebody that causes some trouble and change, right? So I think I want to say first, it's not only about some technical qualification or talent. It's also about how to cooperate with people. And exactly there is a tricky part. Unconscious bias or conscious might come in, because you might say, oh, this person is different. I don't want that different person in my team because it causes trouble. And you might have other situations where you exactly want that to make the change. So it's not all technical only.
There, Fernando.
Yeah. Okay. So my take on the question on how we can make really decisions based on merit, based on who's the best for the job. I think unconscious bias is really a state of mind. It's difficult for us to rationalize it, to understand it. I mean, we can know about it, we can know the roots on why we have these biases, but on the heat of the moment when we're making a decision, trying to follow our instincts, our gut, what we do many times, these things come back. And we fall again into that trap, even though we might know, we have been trained and we know everything. So I think it's about putting in place the right processes that will help put these things in check. And things like making sure that when you have a selection process, you have a diverse slate of candidates, or having panels where people that are diverse will put each other on check when there are comments or decisions and say, but why are you saying this? I didn't notice this, I didn't have this, because they have a different bias. Everyone will have a little bit, even women will have biases, but they are different. And therefore putting that diversity in the decision-making process, I think, is a way to eliminate the risk.
Can I?
Great answer. Yes,
Can
Jonathan.
I add to that? Because I think it's a great point, because I just wanted to build on that around process. So I wanted to share a story. So we recruit college hires in the UK and recruit them centrally across all the Cummins sites within the UK. And we posted 9 college hires, so student placement or student intake. And there was 9. We had 919 applicants. Okay, 160 of them approximately were female candidates. And we really had to relook at our recruitment process and how we assessed through those initial assessment, because the immediate danger was, with those kind of odds against 919 to 9, you could easily have lost all those female candidates. And it wasn't about deliberately selecting them, but really looking at trying to see beyond that first page resume or CV that comes in, because we're kind of a traditional company in many ways. And I think particularly when you're recruiting at a college level or as a junior level, you have more junior people doing that. And what they do is they look at the resume and go, mechanical. Do they have mechanical engineering? Yes, no, checkbox. Have they messed around with cars? Do they have practical experience? Do they have things? And you go through that mental checkbox for the young folks, and they go, well, that's what's worked in the past. That's what will work again. And immediately, you've almost excluded most of the women from that. Almost. Not quite, but you've really stacked the odds. So what we're trying to push, and what I think we need to push, is looking more, to your point, on a process that looks at what are the true skills the individual brings? Are those skills transferable? Looking at what their potential is. And so broadening that to look beyond the traditional degrees that you went after, looking at maths and physics and other things, and trying to search for those skills that are transferable, that are looking for the potential of the individual, and setting up your recruitment process to try and see the potential. So I just wanted to add to that.
So maybe one more to the process, not just the selection in the beginning, but also selection when people are already in the company. What I've seen many times is there is a vacant position, and then you have this discussion between a few people, and then there is a decision. It makes it much better, I can tell you from experience, if you have those discussions about a position when it's not yet vacant. And when you think about potential successes, discuss them without the heat of the moment that you mentioned, and then you can bring in different views. In the heat of the moment, that's very difficult. Everybody's just looking to fill the position fast, and you're under pressure, and then I can tell you mostly it does not really work the best way.
Excellent points. And I know Marcin has one more point.
Yeah, just very, very small. So I'm an engineer, so process is very close to my heart. And actually what we are doing in our organizations now at Intel is actually trying to, because we figure out this exactly what you, Fernando, said, that unconscious bias is, blocking from choosing the diverse candidates. So what we do, for instance, in the case of gender diversity, we agreed that in the pool of candidates there must be female candidate. This is rule number 1, and the other rule is that in the committee, interviewing committee, there must be female. There must be female. So because, for instance, one of the unconscious biases, which actually is a trap even for me, is like Thomas, you said, is it skillful person fitting into this role? So we, at least me and men I know, mostly choose based on skills. While, in my opinion, what I learned is better working, let's choose on potential. And from my experience, and actually several examples, I hired dozens of people. Several examples prove that hiring somebody who has high potential is better for business. And in my case, in majority of these were women, female, really. This is one thing. And I also think, that something which is really promising right now at Intel is that this kind of process started paying back. So in Poland, for instance, this, but also other activities help us to increase in 2 years the percentage of the technical female population from triple it, actually, from 4 to 12, between 12 to 15% at this moment. But the biggest problem right now is not how to get, people on board, technical female, but how to retain them. I hope we'll talk about this later too.
Great, thank you. Thanks for great answers. The next question. What do you think is the biggest thing you've learned or the biggest surprise in being an advocate and change agent for diversity within your organization? Fernando, would you like to take that?
Yes. Okay. So surprise, yes, but also I think it's really a learning I had is how different levels of awareness there is in the organization to start with. And even if we started with a very formal training process, getting all the leaders, all the people trained in this value, inclusion, and diversity program that we had, many people came in and said, I don't think I need to be there. I know the business case. It's clear. I respect women. I respect everyone. So it's good. But after they've gone through it, they realize how much they didn't know. So I think we have to do this, and it takes perseverance. It takes a long time to get these things done, to get across to everybody. So this must be part of the company strategy. I think it has to be a very specific goal or a very strong link to the strategy of the company. It has to be defined and then rolled out by for the people, for the managers. We have created 6 aspirational goals in our company. One of them is to be a model of inclusion and diversity in our industry. And that then creates the need for the managers, the leaders of people, to be accountable to getting these things done and therefore working on it and spending the time that it takes to change the organization, to change how people think. So I think it is a very important learning for me is that we must make this a very official and very pragmatic approach and getting the leaders assigned and accountable to getting this process rolling.
Great, thank you. It's wonderful that you're doing that. Marcin.
Thank you. So maybe just one thing. The potential in a team. So before we started really actively engaging, people and doing a lot of activities, putting all these rules, increasing diversity. I really didn't know so many people eager and keen on working on this challenge and making, it happened that we really have a diverse, inclusive environment. So potential is really huge within the teams. Can you guys imagine that in the program which we started for younger women for early years in college, scholarship in Poland, when we select 20, right now there is a second edition which selects 25 the best of the best scholarships across Poland, and we fund them, scholarship, mentorship, and internship in the summer. When we ask the team, entire side, who want to be a mentor for young scholarship, there was like almost 100 applications for those just 20 scholarships. So actually we get into challenge how to tell those 80 men, actually most of them were men, that you'll probably be next year the mentor because now we have just 20. So the potential in the team is something which surprised me so much that there is a lot of people who want to make a difference, who were simply silent. And when there is, one, North Star showing where to go, they just stand up and do the job.
Good, thank you. That's very important. Thomas.
So maybe looking back to my personal experience, the interesting thing is, whenever you think you know about it, you learn something new. The diversity piece is so broad that even when you read about it and when you think you studied that topic and you're on, and in HR, of course, you're always confronted with that, you still get to know new situations that you did not think before. So I came to Brazil, you know that area where I have been and where you're from, southeast, and we moved our office from the south to the southeast. So that meant we hired then new people from the southeast. And then people from the south thought, oh, now southeast is taking over. And people from southeast said, the leaders are still all from the south. And honestly, I never thought about that at all. But it was somehow one topic to address. Or I mentioned I was living in Switzerland, and I thought that's not a big issue, right? But I can tell you, for the first time in my life, I felt as a foreigner. And it was unexpected, but it was true, and I guess it was not just for me. And those things come up all the time. Another one was in Brazil. You might have expected any race discussions. But what they told me, Thomas, we need to include better our wage population. So that was something that I did not expect at all again. And then we worked on that one, right? I mean, the focus of inclusion or diversity can be very different wherever you are.
Good, thank you. Jonathan? Yes.
I know you want to move on.
No, this is a great question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think the point I wanted to make a little bit here is, and I think from personal experiences, for quite a while, I felt like, as an organization, we were restating the problem in a very different way. Just different data, different analysis, but we were restating the problem. Rather than actually getting to a solution mode and figuring out what we're going to do. I think we've progressed that in our personal experiences, and we sort of felt, not felt good, but we kind of felt, we're restating this problem, and yes, it's a problem. And even from the media, they're very good at stating the problem. And I kind of reflected on it, that if this was a big business problem, and we kept restating it year after year after year, I think we would have taken a different action on it. And I think we would actually have gone under or lost a lot of money. But I think, but it is, and you know, stating the problem feels good, but I think you then got to go to action, and action can be a bit scary. And it can be a bit scary for the men, because the men need to be engaged with this. But I guess my advice would be try some stuff. We've got to try things. Some will work, some won't work. And forgive the organization and forgive the people when it doesn't work, and try and make stuff happen, because otherwise we just continue to spin the wheels and restate the problem. So that was my experience.
I'm so glad. That's great. I'm so glad you did mention that, because I imagine many women in the audience can see that same thing happening in their companies. It gives the impression that work and progress is being made because people are busy working on things, but it's not leading to any real outcomes. So thank you for sharing that. Next question. How do you think diversity initiatives can be an effective bridge between the workplace and the marketplace? Who would like to answer that first? Thomas?
I can give it a start. I'm sure we have better comments from the others then. So I think from my perspective, it's about connecting. It's always good to have some connection points when you talk with people. And this can be with customers, when you have some similarities where you can connect. This is true with applicants. I mean, it was already mentioned to have some females when you want to recruit or select females. Somehow makes sense because you can connect better. And we had a situation in this bank where I started my career, and we hired a Turkish salesman to connect with Turkish customers. I can tell you, this worked very well. I guess no German would have been able to do that at all, right? Or when I started in Brazil, that's easy for a German because you can connect through football. We won't go too deep into that subject, right? Not with the English guy as well, but you know, that's a way to connect.
Do I have to move my seat in between you?
No, we're fine. We like each other. No issues. But you can connect through those issues, and it's the other way around exactly when you get in contact with US people, because you cannot use soccer to connect, right? And when they talk about American football, you're just standing there and you don't get anything. So these diversity piece, I think, is a main piece to connect internally, externally, to applicants, customers, and it's very helpful.
Good, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in?
Thank you, and sorry, I'm speaking all the time.
That's why you're here.
Okay, so probably for all of us sitting here, this is obvious that, for instance, in my case, my wife is, making, if not all, definitely majority, like 80% of decisions what to buy, etc. So this is definitely connecting, having female in the company, in different divisions, sales, engineering, validation, development, or wherever, gives much broader perspective how the product should look like, which is kind of obvious. But one thing which maybe you guys don't know, but was my challenge about maybe not the marketplace in general, but the employee marketplace, was, for instance, that Intel in general, and Intel Poland as well, company was perceived as a pure hardware company, maybe with some pieces of, very low-level software called firmware, and generally perceived like a place not for a technical female, because they operate maybe on a higher level of abstraction, etc. Definitely not a hardware. This is Polish reality. So what we did, we put a lot of effort and money in sending, advocates, female advocates, engineers to universities, to meetings all over, Poland, but also started abroad a little bit too, to show, put their role models, see that there are technical females working in our side, so there is a place for you guys. And they've been testifying the true stories, what they do, how they feel. They've been telling stories, good stories, but also, neutral stories. What's maybe challenging in the company, but in generally, this is how we try to also connect the marketplace, employee marketplace, with our company too, because Intel is silicon company. This is probably majority of you think like this. It's software, it's solution right now.
Thank you. Perceptions are so important to manage. Anyone else want to weigh in on that question? The next question is, what advice would you give to men who are mentoring women engineers? And additionally, how would you coach women to be mentors to other women? The first part of that question might seem a little funny, asking with a group of women on advice to give men, but believe me, the women in the audience will be taking your answers back to the men they work with. So it's very, very important that you answer that question.
Okay,
Fernando.
So let me start and you take it. I think that the mentoring program is definitely something that is very important for development of career of people. So especially the high potentials and having first the mentee driving that relationship is very important. So the mentor has to give that opportunity for the mentee to have a very clear understanding of what they want out of it. What are their goals? So regardless of a man and a woman, but they have to force that. But the second one, which is, I think, specific in that case, is of course bias, right? The mentor is going to try to coach, give advice, but it will, again, be prey of their own bias if they're not actively managing it. And in that case, perhaps overcompensating or trying to, not treat the female mentee as a normal employee, trying to perhaps work with them as a girl and trying to overprotect. I read a study on from McKinsey that women are 20% less likely to receive candid feedback from their managers or mentors than men. Because men are concerned about either appearing harsh or rough, or perhaps triggering an emotional response back from the women. So they cannot fall into that trap. They have to be very direct. Giving candid feedback is the only way, or the best way for the person to develop. And they have to watch it out, especially for the women. Now, on the other side, when women are mentoring other women, I actually have a funny experience. Since I started leading the Regional Inclusion and Diversity Council in our company, I had a lot of discussions with other women and what they think and if they would like to help me participate and everything. And I found two extremes. I mean, either they were all in and they really wanted to help, or they actually want the opposite and say, I don't want anything to do with this. Don't count on me. I'm not, I don't think this is correct, and etc. So there are biases in women's minds as well. So as they become mentors and they look for other women's development, I think, and I just give an advice to watch for it, that they don't behave in that way and think that because they didn't get perhaps the help on their way up, that they won't give it. And they won't give the advice, or they will behave not in a way to really coach on the right way, because perhaps that's how they are thinking. So just I think those things, again, going back to bias, this is everything very important for us to control.
Fernando, thank you. And then I think Thomas did you want to weigh in on this question, and then we'll go to Marcin?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So there's one thing that I think is a start. Everybody that is mentoring somebody should start to listen first. I remember I was taking part in a leadership seminar, 3 days, some years back, and for 2 days we were only told we should listen. Honestly, I asked myself, what did we do wrong to recruit our managers when we need to explain them that listening is important for 2 days? But obviously, it was required, and I still believe it's required. So try to listen. There is one other thing. Share your personal experiences and also share the not so nice parts of it. Very often they believe that this mentor sitting in front of them, right, has a nice position, has a nice office, whatever, right, all those stuff. And it was always easy. I don't think anybody here on the panel had always an easy time. I cannot believe you in Vienna always having an easy time. I can tell you I did not, and my family did not, have always an easy time in Brazil. I can tell you we love it now, and I asked them all if you would want to return, and they all would say yes. If I would have asked that, let's say in this period between 6 months and 1 year, the answer would be certainly very different. This is just one example, right? Also, when you move to a new job and you arrive in a very challenging time, and guess what? Happens quite often. I think you will have sleepless nights. I mean, I had in some instances, not in all, but it happens, right? Because everything is new. You're not yet like, oh, I know everything, I know everybody, I know how to do it. I mean, you hopefully are prepared, but for sure, there will be those moments where you struggle. And I think managers should also tell that to women, that they struggle, because I think men are typically quite good in somehow hiding that. I mean, we learned that. But certainly everybody is faced with those challenges in his or her career. So share it. And maybe the last point, give confidence. Because I have seen, or I have had many conversations with women, and there is one pattern, and it's very interesting. Very often they lack this last confidence. So they told me, oh, I did not apply for the job because I did not have everything that was written in the post. And I told her, okay, as an HR person, do you think we ever have anybody that has everything that is written in the post? No, never. So please, if you think you're interested, if you think you're close to that, please apply. And then we will think about it. And you can work on yourself. We can help you to develop into that. So be confident, right? I have that conversations many times globally. So it's not a German, it's not a UK or whatever issue, Brazilian, you can find it everywhere. And it's typical that we don't have the 100% fit. That does nearly not exist. So this confidence, I think, is another one that should be transferred when you have a mentee. Of course, with realism, it needs to be realistic. I also had mentees that thought they can be the CEO of the company tomorrow. That does sometimes, you can also say that's not going to happen, at least from what I see now. But still give confidence then for next steps.
Good. I'm getting the signal to open it up for questions. 1 minute, maybe?
1 minute. Okay, I speak very fast. So finally is a question which I choose. So I had a prepared answer, but you guys exhausted this answer, so 1 minute is okay. But couple things, guys, which we do, what man as a leader can do for women, to grow. But also it applies to female leader as well, I guess. So what we do, what I in particular do and promote amongst my peers in the site and above me, is really to pay close attention to how the careers develops of technical female. What we do, actually we came up with the special technical leadership program where we review on a quarterly basis. We select first very talented potential, with high potential technical female, and we review how they progress their career. But this is not only review, but we also talk actively and engage entire site in assigning challenging jobs for them, because we want to develop them, we want to increase their visibility, we want to promote them because they have greater impact, work on more complex projects, they have great influence working through others. This is one thing. And about mentorship, 1 thing, 10 seconds, it is just don't be scared to mentor work with women. I've been having in front of me crying women on one-on-one because of the projects we've been struggling. I've been having almost crying men as well, so no difference. I've been crying as well, sometimes mentally. So this is normal. Don't be scared. Female, from my experience, have a greater potential than a lot of men I met.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to open it up for questions in the audience. I know we're going to have a lot of them.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sangeeta. I'm representing Honeywell. My question is, what type of diversity-related programs, diversity-related development programs that you run in your organizations? 1 example from each would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe couple. The one which I mentioned about for the pool of technical female, we have a special program, assigning them critical tasks, critical projects, higher visibility. This is one thing. From the other end of the scale, we have a scholarship program I mentioned about to attract skillful young people. We also have Women in Intel program, which supports. So there are teams of women which meet, which have trainings supported by organization. We also have in Poland, in particular, something called women cohorts. So there is a leader, like a senior manager, female, leading cohorts of 15, 20 women. They meet on a regular basis. They share experience. We also have a coach program for women and several others. But I want to give a chance.
Okay, so at Eaton we have I mentioned one which is I think very impactful. It's called Eaton Resource Groups, and there's a couple of them focused on diversity. We have one called WAVE, that's for women adding value, and the other one is on Engage, that is about bringing the new generations and diversity more in general into also a more inclusive environment. I think that what came out of this, that they share the same kind of issues, they think about opportunities or solutions for the things that they are finding at Eaton. One example was that they proposed, and we gave them resources, and they implemented in that Engage ERG. They developed something called Stretch Assignment Marketplace. So it is a marketplace inside of our company. It's a system where projects and people can meet. So I have a problem in my division. I need something to be done. I'd like to offer it up for people who think they would like to get that opportunity from different places, from different jobs, from different regions. And they apply. They then can participate on this project. That helps them a lot to, and me also, get projects and input and perspective from diversity people. And they are also at the same time getting involved in things that they would not otherwise have the chance to. So that came out of this ERGs, the creation of this SAM. We have launched it recently, and there's a very interesting momentum growing behind this. So I thought it was a very good initiative.
Yeah, if I would tell you one project or program, I don't think that would address the issue, right? I have one in mind, but I think you need to find a way to have a system in place that ensures it's working well. Starting with selecting, where you need to find a way to connect with women. And I know this gentleman here is a nice institution in India, the Cummins School of Engineering for Women. Yeah? So go to the right places, find a way to attract them. Then once they're in, onboard them the right way. So I don't think it needs to be very different men and women, but you need to find a way. Then there is this next one, how to develop people. And that can be very simple, and you can have very specific programs. We have one specific program in Europe. We also started one very specific one in South America, because I was frustrated at some time that in the leadership programs, we always had, 24 participants, 20 men, 4 women. So you run that and you say, okay, that will not move the needle at all. Now we started, say, one level lower, because we had a lot of females on that level lower, but not yet there. And it took place now for the first time. And actually, I'm a little bit proud that we started it there and my successor continued that way, right? So you need to think through it. Just one highlighted program typically is not good enough.
So I'm going to be real quick, okay? So I'll just say technical women's leadership, led from the very top by our CTO, Jennifer Rumsey. It is a global program, but it is regionally focused. So within that TWILT, we call it the Technical Women's Leadership Team, we have leaders by the region, because whilst this is a global issue, the way you tackle it does vary by region. And some of the projects you need to run within region are different, because different challenges face different regions. So we have an India lead, Europe, South America, China, North America teams that drive projects under the banner of that Technical Women's Leadership group, and there are various projects in that, which we can talk about afterwards, but I realize.
All excellent programs. Thank you. Can we get a question over here?
My name is Emmanuel Vervoort from TE Connectivity. We are working a lot on I&D in our company and women development. And we are struggling in including men in our initiatives. So what kind of example could you give me or us, how to better include and stimulate men to participate to those initiatives?
Can I ask you a question? Do you know why?
I'm sorry?
Do you know why they're not engaged?
We see the difference between middle management and top management. So from the top management level, it's very driven. So we have a lot of engagement up to the CEO. Middle management, that's more mixed, let's say. So, and why? That's a very good question. We're trying to figure out.
So and I'll have a go at it first, but I'll pass it on. I think finding out a little bit on why is important. Engaging and talking. And I made a point, I think, very early on around the communication and talking to men and having an understanding of why. Because this can't be an initiative that's just you beat people over the head and say, you will be involved, right? That's kind of easy to do when you're senior. You be involved over there, go get involved, right? But that actually doesn't work, and it actually, I think, causes more damage than good. And so I think engaging with the middle managers, talking to them about what it is about this initiative that doesn't make you want to feel engaged, and getting that really clear and engaging with them. And it is a little bit of conflict, but I think you've got to have a little bit of conflict and engagement to understand the reasons why and then take on those reasons, because they could be varied. They could be varied, they could be different, and it's dangerous to pigeonhole or have a perception of why they're not engaging. Because if you have a perception, you might solve the wrong problem. Okay, so I guess I've kind of given you the action back, I'm sorry. But I think engaging and talking at that level and finding out some of the reasons and then take them on. Does that make sense?
Really great input.
Sorry.
And then I wasn't going to have another, but I'm going to take the mic away. 1 minute.
I put it in my left hand. Okay, Jenny. So I think, of course, coming into solution space is very easy. In Intel we do a lot of things, but in generally, understanding why it should happen is a key point. So in our team, for instance, my case, my personal story was I was always a supporter of diverse everything, but I was rather passive. Several years ago, one person, very strong person, female from HR, came to me and just pulled me in. She really catch me up, tied my hands, and said, "Marcin, I see you have a potential. You have to help me with this because you are a man." And I said, "Okay, let's do this." But just one quick thing which we do, I think, which is happening at Intel actually, and which industry examples show would work. The people who support diversity, they need to go up in the hierarchy. So if there is a great sponsor like in Intel, BK, he put a lot of money, like $300 million 2 years ago, to do this. It's much easier if somebody is, support on a high level is supporting this to go down, rather than bottom up. So promoting people, female, male, in your organization who supports this, in my opinion, would be just a piece of solution. Think here.
Very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have one more question. The woman right there in the middle. Oh, okay.
So mine's about mentoring. Sorry, feedback. Okay. So there's a very famous TED Talk called The Missing 33%. I don't know if you guys have seen it, where they did a study that said there's a senior male leader who has one female and one male mentee. And he will inevitably, no matter how many times they run the scenario, he will teach the man about the business, and he will teach the woman about being confident. And then we wonder why we have a problem, and they make this analysis that maybe this is why we have a problem with women not being promoted above certain levels, because they don't know the business well enough. So how, as women, can we guarantee with our male mentors that we are getting what I like to call equal mentoring?
Great question. Fernando.
I do mentor 2 women today and a couple of men as well. And again, as I said before, mentoring is driven by the mentee. The mentor has an interest to make that possible work. There has to be a good match between them, of course. But the mentee has the responsibility to define the agenda, what they're going to talk about, what are your questions, what do you want to discuss. If when that mentoring relationship is happening and the subject that is driven by the mentee is not going the direction of the business, that, in my view, that's at least a personal perspective I have, then of course I will respond and I will talk about what the mentee is asking me or what kind of problems the mentee is putting in front of me that I have to address. So I feel, maybe I have my own bias as well, and I'm sure I do, but I feel like I will not make a difference in what I'm trying to drive just because it's a man and woman. It depends on what questions, how the conversation is going. So my advice would be, you have to drive the discussion on the direction of the business. You're asking the questions about how it's working, the finances, the products, markets, not so much about the situations perhaps. Sorry if...
No, great.
So I was just going to add a little bit to the whole mentoring process. I think needs to be really carefully watched because it can be somewhat overused as a process and a solution. This is a potential high potential person, get him a mentor. Who's available? Oh, you're available, right, go mentor, right? And I think it's got to be really, really thought through at a senior level. And if you're really considering and looking at your talent, think about at a senior, who are you going to get to mentor that person down through the organization? And so that mentoring relationship, the mentoring partnership, and what we want out of that mentoring relationship needs to be really well thought through at a leadership team level. It can't be delegated down. So I think the mentoring relationship, what you get from mentor, having a defined period for mentorship, I think is really important as well. Don't let the relationship just drag on. I think it needs to be defined time, 6 months, what am I getting out of this? And be clear between the mentee and the mentor about what you're getting out. But leadership have to take an active engagement in selecting the mentor. And then I think there's another discussion about sponsorship, because I think sponsorship is a little bit different from mentorship. So my advice would be also find a sponsor, somebody who is your go-to person, the person that you can engage with, no matter what role you're in within the organization, that will give you sound, great input and advice, irrespective of where you are in the organization, who will advocate for you as well. Because the mentor should be somebody or the sponsor should be somebody who advocates for you, who knows you really well and understands you as an individual. So, not sure quite answer your question, but that would be.
I would love to go on, but we're getting the cut sign. We have a lot of many great activities going on. Before we close, I wanted to ask each of the panelists to just say in one sentence what would be one key takeaway that you want to leave the audience with. Marcin.
Really, one sentence?
One sentence, and not a run-on.
Long one?
Not a run-on.
So ladies, the one thing, I'm telling this to my daughter, so this is really authentic. You are great. You can do everything. This is what I say to my daughter. I want to tell to you, you can do everything. You can break walls. You can break even this glass ceiling above you. Find the right coach mentor. Invest your time in learning, in networking, in building relationship with other females, create communities. Long sentence. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Fernando.
Right. So from my perspective, I think we all are learning in this process. It's not a one side. I think you are learning, but we are especially learning as we go through this. So we want candid feedback. We want you to be active in telling us what are the things that are working, what are the things that are not working. So don't feel shy that you shouldn't. Yes, I want to hear. I think we all want to hear.
Thank you. Thomas.
So I already learned something. So your last question I was not able to answer, but I'm thinking about it. And maybe we somehow ask this question internally as well. I asked myself already, but maybe we can talk one-on-one about it. And I think this is also what I'm looking for, similar to what Fernando said, getting some additional input, some additional thoughts, because diversity is too big to just grasp it, even if you learned about it for about quite some time. Thank you.
Jonathan.
Okay. Get out of problem statement mode into problem solution mode, and we're in it together, so we need to figure it out like any other business problem.
Thank you all so much, and I know Karen would like to come up and present you with a thank you.